This is IBM Museum, and in this video I have behind me the IBM 3196 terminal, and I'm going to go over just some of the layout and features of the machine. I will power it up in that offline condition. I don't have my AS400 powered up, but we'll get to see at least a little bit on the screen. And I'll probably switch to the camcorder shot. And we can also go through, there's not a whole bunch of information online or detail. The Wikipedia entry, which actually has, is kind of repeated here for this website, does have a picture to it where the Wikipedia entry does not. And the interesting thing to me, as we'll get looking through, it does look like that picture of the 3196 is actually missing, and that goes through and falls off just a piece on the front. So I could go through and ultimately provide a better picture of that unit to show. But we'll look around the front and the back. I'm going to go through, I'll move my, and of course you can go through and pause the video to go through and read that if you so desire. The 3196 is actually a little bit more of smaller screen size. And I'll be covering also the related 3197. Let me get, I can get my self up here on the camera to see my back. But same as we saw with the 3180 terminal, and I still have that goo on the table. We can look at the underside of this 122 key keyboard, and we'll get looking at the connector for that in just a moment. I just want to make sure how that is with that that webcam looking at my back. And we just see a part number 1390572. It actually looks like these, I mean, they're sticky, but they have not disintegrated for this one. And it's probably the same material, just hasn't exposed to the same condition. And the interesting thing between the keyboard for the 3180 and it's also for the 3270 PC has that button, and it has that bigger set of legs. It actually has two nesting levels for the legs, and this for these terminals it just has a smaller one, so it's not even where you could get the same relative inclined back to this one. But the 3196 and to some regard the 3197 with a little bit larger screen were probably a little bit more of the budget line of terminals. Now on the front, we'll get moving this thing around. In fact, what I can do probably first is let's go through, let's power on the unit. And I mean, I do hear a little bit of noise from the unit, but I've gone through, adjusted the you have the brightness and the contrast controls on the front here, and it does give us a line at the bottom and then the blinking cursor. So this terminal is effectively alive in that upper right hand corner, and that's the offline condition of the terminal when it blinks in the upper right. Typically as it's going through an online condition, it does have the cursor to the left. There's a little bit of burn into the screen, and it even looks like a little bit of bars, almost maybe like the well, it's probably more of a menu. I was going to say it looked like the kind of the IBM logo bars, but it's more of a menu, and it's more pronounced to the upper portion of this screen. Just probably what this terminal was used for. Now, in the 3196 has this little pizza box kind of thing at the bottom, and then and you can actually disconnect the pivot. There's a little retainer here in the front. You just slide that over, and it's spring loaded, and you can separate the screen body from the lower terminal portion. And so going through around, we'll go through. I can reach here on the back, and I'll have this thing pivoted around in a moment. I just want to go through and disconnect power first, and we will go through. I'll disconnect, even though I'll have this probably hooking a little bit on things as I bring it around, but I'll leave that portion connected. Just going through and disconnecting that twin X cable that goes to the unit. So we do have this disconnected. We're going to bring this around to where I'm going to disconnect the keyboard. Now this is still the splayed 5-pin. You know, I had to kind of deal with looking at my screen as I should over here on my right, rather than kind of chasing my own tail for the delay in the video. But there you can see the pins in that connector, and it's just an angled connector. We saw with the 3270 PC and 3180 keyboard that they use, it's a straight on connector that has actually a threading that locks in there. But on this, and then you can see on the front of the unit where it does have that the connection for the keyboard. It looks like it goes, is actually kind of angled off to the left, looking at the terminal. And for orientation, it does have the IBM printed on the top of the connector. Now, I did have a set of keys around, and it's pretty much the same keys for the 3197 and the 3196. And I'll show the 3197 in the next video. I thought that these keys might be somewhat universal, but I've learned, I pulled a key out of actually one of the 3197s I had, and it was pretty much the same source, I think, for the units. We'll get to that in a moment. But I found that the key just doesn't work in this unit. I do have other 3196 units around. I'll have to see if their key, in fact, works in this or not, just to figure out what keys I have of those around that does have a stamp in there for the number. We get to that, that's the bezel piece that's missing in that online article. And then on the front of this, it actually has a drop-down door here, and it has a little manual in there, dusty. And then that is the 3196 Display Station Problem Solving Guide Station Address. And I've seen some of these that they have a post-it note on the front, and you could, it's station address and it's a blank. And you could go through and you could write the station address of that particular workstation in that block. So this is, nearly brand new. It looks basically untouched, but I guess the operator could go through, and it's January of 19 87. Get that to where it's visible. I just wonder if that if that ring light, the presentation I'm seeing there, it's all right, but it's looking a little bit washed out for me when I get a wide image. How to use this guide, and it goes through and actually shows the units. What they call the logic element, the video element, and yeah, I think I'm going to go through. Let's go through like that. You see a little bit more of the arrangement I have off to the left here, but it just gives me a little bit better screen space as I throw this up on as I present this in front of the camcorder. And we'll get to the different units here. It shows it separated. I'm probably not going to go through and separate it here on camera. But it's a rather easy process. And then it's even showing that you can get the 101 key keyboard or the 122 key keyboard. And I've never seen a 101 key keyboard with that angled plug like that though. Might be handy to look around for one. And it goes through and describes the power on light, your contrast controls, probably your keys, initial check. And I didn't hear a beep from this unit as I powered it on before. I had to look through and see. I mean, the cursor was blinking. I'm fairly certain that there's reaction from the unit. But this goes through. I could trace down that problem if it maybe gives says that there should be a beep and there wasn't for me. But just something for the operator to go through and look through in those determinations. They even have where this looks like the skewed display I saw briefly. Screen out of focus and things like that. And these would be more deeper. You have even your pin cushion, what they call screen warping. These would be more severe problems, of course, that the operator could not necessarily solve. They would have to have the unit serviced. I do not know what these units were priced at the time. The online information, the limited information I looked through did not show that. They do show in the manual video element removal. They talk about sticking it on its head. And do not disconnect the cables during an electrical storm. They're not the electrical surge that comes down the line, an electrical storm. They're not wanting you to get affected by that. But they show how to go through and remove that logic piece. And the keyboard work, putting it back on. At the end of the manual. Okay, then we even have, it talks about the setup key. That'd have been interesting to run through, I guess. And then, oh, you can set the address. We might go through and plug the unit back in just to kind of see, after I'm through kind of spinning it around, just to kind of see if we can go through that sequence. But the setup and or shift plus setup attention. Might be interesting to go through that though. But that's in this little drawer. And I thought at one time that the base of the 3196 and 3197 was the same, but I've kind of seen since then that they aren't. It's we'll see with the 3197 how that differs. Now, going through, bringing this around, the left side looks pretty much as to the right. It's got just that grill for the heat to dissipate from inside that logic unit. And on the back, this is where it's got that Twin XT, and these are very common for the 3196 and 3197 terminals as well. Connect up the unit. It has the pass-through Twin X connector. Assembly, if you're at the end of the chain, I don't know if you could go directly into the unit with the Twin X cable. The references I saw talked about something to the termination of that cable, that it would go through and auto terminate. And we've got a 25 pin connector, male, or should I say, I guess it's a socket and plug if we use the non-gender identification, but there it's got the DB25 connector that goes between the video and the logic element. That cable's pretty thick. It's not able to really bend all that much, but it does allow going through and moving the video element to all those locations, even kind of to a side effectively. And then the power connection is actually on the back of the video element, and so it puts some probably logic level 5 volt or whatever down lower. The Twin X may actually need a higher voltage for the transmission of that, because this Twin X stuff can go quite a bit of distance. And then of course the badge on the back of the 3196. And this looks like it has a, to me, I think it's probably relatively generic, but it's my local school system marked things like this. And I'm not sure if I got this. I don't think I got this in any of the school lots. I know that they had an iClass system, but I don't think that they had any mini computer or whatever else. In fact, I just don't really remember the source that I got these from at all. I've got a good handful of these 3196 terminals that I received together. I did not get them individually. I'm curious. Let's go through, and I knew it wasn't going to be too terribly long of a video anyway, for me going over, compared to some of the things like the 3180. We're just going to go through. I don't really have to go through and connect this up to the Twin X side, but it's going through and pushing that together, then screwing it tight, and of course the all-important, we connect in the keyboard, the all-important power connection on the back. And let's go through and actually power this unit up again. Okay, and we get the same line, blinking cursor in the upper right, and it said the shift and the system request attention, which is in the kind of the left hand portion. I'd say upper left, but the function keys of course are above that. And nothing. And I would think this, for saying the station address, well, they even show how to pack it for shipping the IBM way. Okay, setup or shift. Okay. And I had other logic units around too. Okay, the setup. Oh, there we go. So we have 9012. We've got a blinking kind of diamond there. Oh, they're showing... I see where I went wrong. So they're showing on the 122 key keyboard, it's the setup key, which is this lower right. Lower left corner. And then the 102 key keyboard, you're doing shift plus the setup attention. So basically between the two keyboard types is how that's done. And for the set address key on the 122 key keyboard, it's this Command 24. You have all your, effectively your function keys at the top that are labeled as command, and we're doing Command 24. Okay, for the 122 key keyboard. And see that blank. That's identified as F12, F24, and basically the shift key on the 101 key keyboard, since that's got it at the top, it goes through and selects that. I have a little writer. I want to show. This is the 101 key keyboard ultimately for my info window. I do have I've got a spider on the prowl. Just kind of leave him. Hopefully he's looking for other bugs and not me. But on this 101 key keyboard, you do shift and the F12, F24. That would basically select that F24, the same as the double row. Of function keys here. And moving on to the next page, it should show continuously pressing the address key until your display station address appears on the bottom of the display. I'm not seeing that change. I'm just seeing that as that diamond, and they're showing it actually as a, there should be a number over that way, but I don't know what that 9012 identifier is. If that's an error, basically, that I might have to go through and work with these logic units to get them working. In fact, does it have an index? Maybe going through and reading through the manual would tell me what that 9012 means. If that's some sort of Alarm problems. Alarm does not sound. Press the setup key. Okay, setup. Command 4. Okay. Now I guess you have to hold the setup key. Okay. So that goes through and it increases the volume, kind of just ramps it up and drops it if you keep pressing the key, and then just goes through a ramp level to where so that's probably about the highest level. Really doesn't have any indication on the screen of the volume level effectively, and I'm assuming that that could be muted. Now with the 3180, as I went through, I don't think I demonstrated on video too much. As I went through pressing keys, it also effectively sounded on the 3180 unit itself. Okay? And I guess that gets out of the setup condition. Yeah, 9012. Is it maybe thinking that yeah, that's got to be some air condition probably. They'll have to go through and see if I'd ever go through to use these, but that's how you set the system address. So that is helpful. It didn't talk about any key positions. That might be something too. I think I was looking at step 11. Okay. And this is the logic element. And of course, I guess what they're meaning there is that if you replace the logic unit, that would go through and change the station address. You would have to go through and reset that. Turn the unit right side up. Oh, okay. So clearing the condition. Let's go through. Let's turn it off. It says, after the attach the keyboard, do the following. Press and hold the space bar. Set the power switch to on. And it's interesting that, they show the I in parentheses or the single line up and down. Continue holding the space bar until the test pattern appears. So this manual is pretty helpful. Until the test pattern appears. Outstanding. It even has 3196. Got some binary up here. This may be like a station address. This would be as it goes through and you do keys. You can see what keys that you've pressed. Interesting. You can see what keys you've pressed. They go through and many of them go through and activate after single press, and then deactivate after alternate. They go through and toggle. Wow. So read the manual. It has a little test down here in the lower left-hand corner. It's got 1 dash dash. So maybe if we go through the sequence correctly until the test pattern appears, okay, press the setup key, system request, and we got that 9012 indication again, but oh, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 0. So go through 7 possible addresses of 0 through 6 for that line, that port that we're on for the terminal. So now we're getting someplace. And then they, at the end, I'll go through, let's set it to 1. And I'll go through, and once we have it set in there, they're talking about pressing the setup key. Okay. And press the setup key. Address for your display station is now set and remains the same until you change it. Press the setup key. I'm guessing that goes through. I don't know if you have to if that retains it, and then you go through and maybe power it down from here. But I could go through and go through the guide more for the they talk about the keyboard. Oh, okay, keyboard language. Man, I should have gone through this manual. And I can probably go through what would be neat is for me to go through and scan this too. Have that information. That would be much more than the current articles, Wikipedia, whatever else have up. I don't even know if YouTube has a video on this at all. But I'll have to spin around the right way here and get back for my microphone cord. Get back on screen. And that is just over a half hour. So probably a good video for going over everything. And I have the 3197 that'll be in the next video they'll do. And I think that'll be very similar to the 3196 that we went over here. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click on that like button, please. And I'm gaining the subscribers, but I can always use more. So encourage your friends to subscribe, and subscribe yourself if you are not already. But this is IBM Museum. That's all I have for now. Thank you.